Call to order the regularly scheduled board meeting for USD 464 for Monday, December 14th. This time, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there at this time I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Justin moved, Kai seconded. All in favor of approving the agenda, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carried unanimously with that. We'll move on to the presentations. First, we have Amber Beverlin with DLR, who's on Zoom, couldn't make it. There's an attachment to the board docs, but her presentation will also be visible on the screen. You can go in through Zoom, but you have to kind of watch the feedback. Anyway, Amber. Are you there, Amber?
Sorry, guys. Yes, sorry. My computer locked out, so I'm getting it restarted right now. Sorry about that.
And maybe I'll just step in. I mean, you know, we've all visited with about the planning process for the future and post-bond with some of the money based on the bids and trying to figure out long-term what we're doing. And Lauren and I think Chris was in a meeting. We've had some conversations with what DLR can provide for us, and this is kind of an update on that for everyone's benefit. Are you there?
Yes. Jim, if you're ready to go, I can go ahead without the screen share and
Okay.
we'll go through the document, and then I'll circle back to the one piece I added, which was kind of a timeline.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah, that's fine. I think we all have
Okay.
that.
Perfect. Okay. So that first page says approach. That kind of walks you through or gives you an idea of the different tasks that we're talking about that would occur during a master planning process. And I'll show you when we'll see the timeline later. Some of these do overlap. So this graphic might be a little misleading, but there is a little bit of overlap. And in general, we want to start with research and discovery and then go through the steps with a bit of overlap. And at the bottom is task 7 or the master plan document that we would deliver. So I'm going to walk you through each of these. And I know you had this beforehand. I doubt anybody's got all the time to read through this whole thing, so I'm going to hit the high points, but I'd love for anybody to stop me if you've got questions or something you really want to focus on through here. So on that next page talks about that first research and discovery step. If you all remember the process that we went through during bond planning, that this step is very similar to how we started that. It's establishing that main group of people who will be involved throughout the process, which typically in master plan, there's a little bit less of involvement of the community from the beginning and more involvement from staff that are very well versed in the buildings. So principals, all the maintenance, mentioned his maintenance staff, and obviously Tanya and Lauren, everyone at the administrative level. So more of the people who are intimately knowledgeable about the facilities, what you're doing within the facilities, you know, where you're trying to go with the facilities, all of that good stuff. So really establishing that, what we call that core planning group. And along with this step as well, we're making sure that we're setting your guiding principles. I'm going to get my screen going back up here again. You'll see that I put in there the principles that we set up when we were doing the bond planning process. And obviously they wouldn't be identical because that was just focused on high school. But I wanted you guys to see them just so you have an idea that there might definitely be some starting points there as we look at your district as a whole. So really those are the big important things. And then the other thing about this first step is really kind of setting a schedule. Not that it's set in stone, because depending on what we find each step may vary the rest of the process, but it's at least setting a good timeline. And the other thing I'd like to set in this first step is protocol for communication, not only throughout your district, but also protocol for communication with you as the board. How often we need to be coming in and giving you an update on the process and how much you'd like to hear about that. So that would be that first step. So if you flip the page to the next page, has a number 15 at the bottom of it. Our second step is the condition assessment. So this piece is vastly simplified here because we've got some information. Obviously, we've already went through the high school, so we have really good information about the high school and everything that's there and everything that's already been touched. And then on top of that, we've got good information that Lauren and a lot of people helped Lauren put together a good list of some needs that are throughout the district already. So I have access to that, and so we have a really great foundation to build on. Most important thing here to know is that it's my team of experts, engineers, architects, land surveyors, all of those guys going out and doing their assessments of your existing properties based on their, our experience on what is kind of typically needed at the different levels of education. So what's needed at an elementary school, what's needed in a middle school for site needs, so it goes all the way from how you do drop up and pick up, all the way to, okay, that middle school is X number of years old, what are the pieces that are coming outdated for the way that you want to deliver education at this point? How has that changed? And how can we better, does the building need to be retrofitted or modified so we can better serve education? Something I'll point out, you have a really new elementary, you will have a really new high school, and then that middle school is between 10 and 15 years old, I think. And so that's something that keeps coming to my mind is this continuum of learning we want to be able to help you guys provide. So if you're doing something, able to do something at the elementary, and then you can't at the middle school because of space constraints, environmental constraints, then you're able to go back and do it in high school, that's not good. We want to try and solve those kinds of things. We don't want the facility to be in your way. So those assessments are really looking at a lot of those different things. We're also looking at the systems. So we've already, I know at the high school, we already identified some mechanical needs that you're able to take care of, some units that were coming to end of life. So that's fantastic. What are those other needs throughout the district? Where are we at with those systems as they age out? And what is a good time to make an investment in a new system, or what's a good time to make investment in repairs or maintenance? So systems are pretty big, and I always bring up mechanical because everybody thinks about that. It's easy to think about the, being hot or cold, having that perfect temperature for learning. However, there are many other systems. The fire alarm system, constantly is getting upgraded what's required with building codes. The data cabling, is something that can easily get outdated and have higher needs or more access points or ability to provide Wi-Fi within the building, just as you change the way you deliver with technology. So all of those different systems. And then the other piece I'll point out, I'm sure when you went through the elementary school, you did something similar like at the high school when we had pretty intense furniture studies. As far as, I know you just wrapped up, or were wrapping up at the high school, with what kind of furniture is right for the way that you guys want to teach education. It looks different for all different ages of kiddos, as well as the different modalities that you want to use for teaching. So that's another piece to look at that middle school. Are there pieces missing there that you found very helpful at the elementary or the high school, will find at the high school that would help with that learning? So we'll look at that as well. And that, we kind of lump that all together. You'll see it's the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So furniture, and then also things like, do you have a kiln that's aging out? Or do you not have a kiln at all, or do you need 2 kilns? So that's a simplified one. Do you have storage needs throughout, or do you have, as you increase technology, do you have more laptop cards that you need? Different things like that we can help kind of research as far as, again, timeline on that, when things are aging out or when needs are. And then, just really generally anything else, are there drainage issues on the site? Are there site elements that are, in need of either repair or replacement, like the parking lots that we found at the high school? Really just looking at any other, I know you've got some buildings out there kind of on the southwest corner of the high school site that, I don't know when the last person was in that building. I mean, structures like that that are sitting, do they, well, you know, do they need something addressed to them? Are they being used to full capacity? Are they wasting, you know, your money, and how can we address that? So really generally looking at every single piece of property within the district, that you guys own. So along with that conditional assessment, as we're doing those, the right-hand side of the page, the estimating cost of existing facilities piece, really kind of goes hand in hand with the assessment. As we're identifying the needs within the assessment, we go through and start to associate costs with those as well, of course, and start to develop an entire database of what costs would look like associated with all the different needs. This can get overwhelming in large districts. Here, when we have the 3 main buildings, it can be a pretty easy spreadsheet to get through, but the important thing to know is we're really looking at total cost. So not just, you know, if a mechanical unit needs to be replaced, just that. We're looking at what potential, so that's the hard cost, that unit, but what are any soft costs associated with that? What are any contingencies we may want to figure in for unknowns? Some of those we already kind of faced over at the high school. And then, is there any escalation? So if it gets identified as a longer-term project, what are some potential escalation factors that we want to put on top of that, just so we know we're covering what that true cost is going to be in the future. And I kind of have it in there too. Really, we're looking at short-term, mid-term, or long-term. You know, associating those costs, as those things get identified in one of those categories, then of course those costs are going to look different for each of those. And then the next page is community outreach. So you guys are very familiar with the community engagement that we had while we were working on, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my file open, while we were working on the high school. But in this case, it looks a little bit different. Here again, like I said, we're leaning really heavily on district staff and administration to really have the knowledge behind the building. But what we want to do here is just make sure we're sharing out the process of what's going on with the community. It's important for them to understand that you are putting together, you're formulating a plan, you're working on working towards your strategic goals and the mission of the district as a whole, and working this plan towards that. So it all works in conjunction, and it is important to hear, and we do take some time to hear the community, to get that perspective in there. So using different, you know, we'll do site-specific outreach where we just talk to parents of elementary school kiddos, parents of middle school, you know, what are you seeing specifically as needs at these different sites? And just gathering that information so that it can be weighed in against everything that, again, that inside knowledge that you guys have as a staff. There's also a digital outreach as well. You'll see on the next page, we really talk about, and especially in the times we're in right now, we have a lot of platforms that we can use so we can reach out digitally. And even when we're not in this situation, in a pandemic situation, you have dual working parent households, you know, no, people don't have all kinds of extra time to sit in, or maybe attend tons of meetings that they have input they want to provide. So we have ways that we can gather that and provide that as knowledge when we go through the rest of the process. And then of course, forums are a way that we can get the information out there as far as what process is happening, what step are we in the process, what have we discovered, you know, what are we working towards, just really informing the community about what you guys are doing. I don't know if I'm going too fast, too slow. Anybody has any questions yet? Or if I should just keep on going?
I'm not seeing anybody with any questions yet, so I think we're kind of familiar with the
All right.
process, given the bond and all the things we've been through, but
Yep. Okay, perfect. So then, on the next page is something that, I've already kind of expressed, I'm not sure how deep this would need to go with Tompanoxie School District, but in the yellow ed specifications are something that I see a lot with, I use the example of Spring Hill. They're just exploding. They have had a lot of growth. And when you have a lot of growth and you're building a lot of buildings, it's nice to have consistency across those buildings. So as you build your third elementary down, fourth, fifth, you know for sure that you're getting some standardization within the rooms. You're getting standardization within, in the adjacencies between the rooms. So you know for sure your sped's always ending up in the same area of the building because you know the way that you like it. And this can go super, super deep. It could be where you go, okay, we want stainless steel grab bars in the restrooms. I mean, these ed specs really look different for a lot of different districts. Or it can be super high level, where I think maybe it would be more appropriate in Tompanoxie, where you talk about, we know what our capacities need to be at the different buildings. And we know, so we know we want our elementary school size is capped at X. So our student teacher ratio is X. And we know that we want our grade level configurations kept the way that it is, K-5 and then 6, 7, 8, and then the high school. Some of those higher level type of things could be set up within ed specs so that you're just kind of marking a line in the sand so that when you get to a point where, because if you are growing, as your demographer may tell you, you at least know, we've set this, we've met this point, now we need to talk about it again and look at what could be modified. So you see the bottom left-hand side there, I've got those things that I kind of mentioned, but that's where I feel like, if I was going to give a recommendation, that's somewhere where I would stick with ed specs for the district, but know that this can be much deeper as well if we wanted to go somewhere deeper with it. You'll also see, I kind of breezed over, but there are a lot of people who we would pull in and get involved with this as well. So, if we were talking about, let's say the student teacher ratio, we bring in Tanya and the group of people she wants to really be talking about what's appropriate for that, because it's not just classrooms, but it's in all those other special classrooms as well that have, particular different needs than a general classroom. What would that look like? So that's ed spec. And then of course in the navy color on the right side is prioritization and implementation. So obviously this piece would be where we really start, the rubber hits the road, if you will. So that would be where we really need to start thinking about, okay, what's something that we need to identify as a short-term goal, midterm, or long-term, and we could really start defining what this would look like. And again, this is a living document. I don't know if it says it yet. I could say that many times. Because it's really planning for the future, right? Not predicting what's going to happen, but it's trying to plan for our future, knowing that there are many variables that could happen. So this step is really super flexible, but this is again with that core planning team that we talked about. So we would be really working through that and working on really pulling all this information together and identifying those. And then once we have that prioritized and knowing what's kind of fitting into each of those buckets, if you will, then we would have on the last page in the purple, you'll see the master facility planning document. So that would be the gathering of all the information that we would have done up to this point, including, if you'll see step 5 called master plans, that's just including if there's any,
right there.
You guys can how about now?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, perfect. I got going again here, so. Okay, so, the number 5 master plans, that's really just, if there's any drawings or anything like that, any state, we needed to look at expansion in a new piece of ground or something like that. This is really, or we've looked at the curve over at THS and what kind of capacity is there for different site elements. 5 is just really letting you know that anything like that would be included within this document, so you had visual representations of what some of these items would be. So, I don't know if I went too fast, too slow. I will, if you could see my screen, I'm going to go down to this piece here, because what I want you to see is that there is a bit of overlap with some of these items. That research and discovery, and the piece I didn't put on here is, of course, demographics. So I think you're hearing from somebody from RSP tonight, or maybe right after this. That piece really is, they'll work on that. They'll give you their timeline, but I'm imagining that's going to work over our research and discovery a little bit. And it can overlap our facility condition assessments as well. But really, we want to make sure we have the demographic information before we get we don't really want to get into educational visioning or community outreach, and just kind of starting into estimating the cost before we really, we want to have all the demographic information when we get there. So you'll see how these bars kind of overlap just a little bit. And it's because I really feel we can do the assessments and the cost estimating kind of overlapping each other. And in that community outreach piece, we can kind of start into that before we have really the assessments completely finalized, and we want to, because again, if we're getting some of that perspective of community, we want that to weigh into what those assessments are, what all information might need to go into those. And then that educational visioning piece, we definitely want to be working on that, and that can be worked on while we're doing the community outreach piece as well. But of course, all of those first steps need to be done. We have to have all that information tight and ready before we go to the prioritization and implementation. And that's a piece that could really vary up at 6 to 8 weeks on there, just because depending on what comes out of it, where the numbers come in at, and how much you guys want to put in each of the buckets, really can determine what that looks like. You may ask for, more, we may need, it's kind of cyclical, we may need to go back and look at some things before you can prioritize. So that's why that piece could take a little bit longer if some things don't really, if not everything flows to the top, they'll obviously. And then that last piece, putting the document together, about a month or something like that. It is fluid. We have a lot of different ways we can deliver it. Worst would be a master planning document that goes and sits on Mitch's desk and doesn't ever get looked at again, of course. So we want something that you can use and be interactive with. So it could be a booklet, or it could be a website, or it could be somewhere in between. Look a lot of different ways, really depending on what your guys' level of interest is. So, all in all, I think I've mentioned before, I think this is something around 6 months. It might be less, it might be more than that, kind of depending on what we run into. And again, that demographic piece. If demographics come back and say that there's something like tons of growth or something that we really need to plan for outside of the facilities we already have, that's the piece that could lengthen some of these things, because then we have to start looking at additional facilities, additional ground, some of those things more than what we know is within our prison right now. And that being said, I did put these in here so y'all can just kind of give a little gander on those. That's what came out of that first workshop we had at high school. So obviously some of these things I think still apply across the entire district, of course. So with that, that's all I really had. Any questions?
Any questions from board members? When we talked in the meeting, I guess it kind of came up, obviously cost is always an issue.
Yep.
And you said multiple ways we can do this, but I guess given our situation and your familiarity, kind of a hourly not to exceed, if we could keep, because I think we have a relatively narrow focus depending on what the demographics tell us, but, anyway,
Yep.
I mean, that was kind of the option you thought might be cost beneficial to us.
I do think so. I think that would allow it, and what I kind of talked about before is, you know, whatever we set it up to be, it could be in, you know, whatever increments you'd like. And again, if you know, let's just say I come to the board every month and we give an update, you know, it would be easy to say we're 20% through our process and 20% through our hours of our hourly not to exceed. So we're right on, or, you know, these numbers aren't the same and here's the reasons why, or whatever. So you could really track along the way and see, and by the way, that's probably not a good example because there may be more effort happening at the beginning, you know, in a different task than another, but what I could do is track you along. But I do think hourly not to exceed would allow this process to flow a little bit better. So if we did discover we need more focus, and I think the example is this document, and this information has already been put together. There's so much here in discovery that conditional assessments may take less time than what I'd normally plan for. So that would save you some money there and wouldn't drain as many hours. But then we may get to something else where you say, hey, we want to dive in a little deeper here. We haven't done that part yet. And hours look a little different there. So hourly not to exceed would allow us to really just track along the way, ebb and flow when we needed to, and then still check in with you at whatever increments you'd like us to. And hey, we're getting close, or we're still only halfway through, and just track it along the way. Of course, the other option is lump sum. So that's where I put together what I think it would take in dollar amount, and we would go, you know, from there. And that's not the bond. If you guys remember that was based off of the, you know, percentage based. So the size of the bond kind of determined what that would be. In this case, it really more is dependent on, again, the information we have, the amount of facilities that you have. You know, just basically, again, depending on how many hours and what manpower we think it's going to take us to get all the way through the process.
All right, Drew's got a question.
Okay.
So when you do the facility assessment, is that purely facilities, or is that also equipment in the classroom and renewal of, you know, I think in automotive or ag or that kind of stuff, there's a lot of renewal there. Equipment breaks down, and then, you know, like if you have a piece of equipment breaks down, it might be $50,000 to replace it. Is that part of the facility, you know, condition assessment, or can it
Yes.
be?
Absolutely, yeah, great point, Drew. And within that, you know, when I was kind of talking about furniture, fixtures, equipment, that's what I should have given an example of, because that's exactly what we're talking about. We want to try and, as holistically as we can, identify all the needs that may come up over the short, mid, and long term for the district. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. One of the outcomes I'd like from this process is an overall forecast to show, you know, over a time period, let's say 25 years or something like that, as needs go up, like what is a base case plan that avoids future mill levy increases? And then what are the ranges from that? Because one of the concerns I have is every time we've run into a bond project, we've just trended up over time with mill levy increases. And how can we forecast that to understand what does a plan option look like that holds that steady or potentially reduces it over that time frame? And I don't know if you can do that without also forecasting everything else, not just facility, but also entire budget, as well as revenue side of things. Is that something that you all do, or is typically done, or does that include some specialty services like forecasting and accounting services to do that.
Yeah, I was immediately thinking of Justin too, because I do think there's that piece, kind of outside of what our specialty is, but that's not to say that, we could still work with him, and then kind of as we're working on that cost piece, obviously take into consideration your mill levy, dollars that produces then for your capital outlay budget, and then how we can at least stay within that, within some kind of a contingency range or something along those lines. But I would love to call Dustin and kind of get his take on that, and how we could maybe work together.
Yeah, it may not even be a bond thing, it may be more of a budgetary department forecasting, you know, more of a budget analysis, historical analysis, and then trending forecasting from that too. Is that, because I don't know if that's
Right.
Dustin's expertise or not.
A lot of that's gonna depend on our headcount group, our
Right.
FTE, the
Which-
growth study.
So really, demographics is used as input
Yep.
for that.
Absolutely, has to be.
And then I could see a scenario where the demographics input as well as our own budget forecasting tells us how much flexibility we may or may not have. And that then may drive the prioritization later on. Right, because,
Depends how far you wanna go out.
yeah, I mean, the further you look out, the fuzzier the picture gets.
Right.
And I think you bring up a good, I think that's the point of the exercise, is to identify what the expenses are and then kind of build it into our budget and capital outlay going forward.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
This is more of a comment than a question, but I think that when we think through this, we need to be pretty honest with Amber said that if it sits on Mitch's desk, it doesn't do any of us any good, and I couldn't agree with that more. And I think we need to be pretty honest with ourselves to say, what's it gonna take in either cost or effort to keep this current? Probably at least yearly, if not, every 6 months or something. And if we don't have the appetite to spend either the time or the money, or probably both, to keep it current, then I think that ought to be part of our calculation here too. Because if we go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this study, and it sits on a shelf and it's out of date in 2 years, it was a total waste. Versus if we spend that money and then have the desire to continue to, it might be mostly time, my suspicion is it's time and money to keep it up to date, then we'd really have something. So I think that, maybe the question there, Amber, is what do you see districts do who keep it up to date successfully, both in terms of what's their time commitment as well as their dollar commitment to keep it up to date? Anyway, I think to me that's a huge factor in whether there's value in this or not.
Did you hear that, Amber?
I did, I think I heard all of it. As far as a time commitment, that piece could be pretty simple if, like you said, if we're doing it yearly, and I'm not sure yet what the right interval would be for you guys. That demographic study, I think, is gonna give us more info on that. But if you're looking at it at a regular interval, I think the time would be pretty minimal. I think, I don't know if Mitch is there tonight. I think a lot of it's gonna fall, a lot of it will be on his shoulders, because if he's able to sit there and find things as he's knocking them off within his capital outlay, let's say, and not a bond, but he's able to say, here's things I'm gonna work on this year with my capital outlay budget. It's gonna be up to him to be keeping that kind of thing updated, and then to say, oh, we have something that, an unknown that happens, and now we gotta account for that. Obviously, that's something that we can help you with as well. If you're at that point as a district where you say, really, we'd like this to be something that's handled, and we just get told, walk through it, and you guys call us and tell us that he needs it, that's absolutely something we can help you with as well. If that's the difference, or that's the thing that means that you guys stay on top of it and are able to keep on it. Some districts have, it talks about even a communications liaison in here. I know you guys don't have that. If you don't have the capacity, we absolutely can help with that as well, to make sure it's something valuable to you for the whole future.
Drew's got another question?
I see in here that you're estimating cost of existing facilities. I'm assuming that if the demographics shows any future growth, that we would also then be estimating the costs of future maintenance of those
Yes.
future facilities.
Absolutely, yes, that's right. Task 3, and it's only just because Task 3 is really just focused on those existing, and then as we get to a point where, like, let's say in Task 6, we prioritize a new facility, you know, something like that, then yes, the cost absolutely would be factored into that as well, and it would be those full costs, same thing, worrying about the escalation of when you get to the point of needing to add that, what that true cost would be at that point.
Any other questions?
Would it be possible, I mean, as we consider this, to see some sample plans of what other districts have done, the level of detail, and that kind of thing?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yep, I can definitely do that. I even have a website link I could send you for one. We haven't gotten to do one here. I could do, you guys could be our first Midwest website. We have a website from one in California with an insane amount of schools, but it would give you an idea of how it could function. And then, yeah, I could also share with you some other, so yeah, absolutely. Let me put some resources together and I can get them to Lauren so he can share them out with you guys.
All right, I think, anyone else? Anyone? Well, we've got this, I mean, we've got this listed as an action item for later, so I think this helps kind of give some background and we can kind of discuss how we want to go forward and follow up. But thanks, Amber. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Yes. No problem. Thanks for having me tonight, guys. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you in person, so.
No problem. Well, we will,
Would you like me to stick on for the action part later, or take off?
Yeah, it might be a little while.
yeah, I was gonna say, are you gonna be around if we would, Lauren has
Yeah.
your number if we, I mean, I hate to, we can give you an hour or two of your time back right now and maybe buzz you if we have a pressing question. Would that be okay?
Please do. Yes, absolutely. Lauren, just give me a text or give me a call and I'll jump on.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. What do we do here, of course?
Goodbye.
Looks like it's off. All right. Move on to the next presentation for tonight. RSP.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Clay Guthmiller. I'm here tonight representing RSP and Associates. We're out of Overland Park, and on behalf of Rob Schwartz, who is our CEO, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to submit a proposal for an enrollment analysis tonight, and also to work with Superintendent Feldkamp and the administration and the board on this project. I always said it was easy to see why families choose to live in Tonganoxie and send their children to this district when you see the quality staff, programs, services, and activities available. And I can say that because I served as a superintendent in Leavenworth previously and had the opportunity to work with folks down here, so we're really excited about working with you on this project. Go ahead and move to the second page. We just have a short proposal. You've had it, you've probably looked at it. I'm not going to cover it in great detail, but I'll cover some of the parts of it. We work exclusively with educational institutions, and we work to build custom, if you will, data-driven initiatives that are going to help you support the academic success of your kids. And having Amber talk from DLR with the project you're going through, probably one of the greatest sources of data that you're going to use in this is your student enrollments. And so this analysis will be important. We're a full-service planning firm. We do a lot more than just enrollment analysis. But we use a formula that Rob Schwartz, our CEO, developed many years ago. And we project enrollments with great accuracy. We use this formula to about a 97% or better rate of accuracy in our 5-year enrollment adjustment. So you'll see that as we go through here a little bit more. The next 3 pages are basically staff. Rob Schwartz is our CEO. He's been at this for a long time and is a very, very knowledgeable person in enrollment and the things that we do. We have on the next page, if you want to get a hold of someone at our office and you want to talk the business, because Rob's on the road a lot, and we would refer you to Stacia Schwartz. She's our executive administrator there. And then on the next page, we do have also some consultants, including myself, who do help facilitate and work with this process. On the next page is really the scope of the project and the service that we're going to provide for you. If you look at the second paragraph there, we will collect, review, and analyze demographic data from a lot of different sources. And the following information will be collected to develop the analysis, and it talks about the different things that we will be looking at. It's anticipated that RSP and Associates will include the following information in your enrollment analysis: your past and current enrollment trends. There'll be a number of demographic profile of the district, housing profile of your district. We'll provide you with 5-year projected enrollment for public school enrollment by buildings. So we'll project those enrollments out for 5 years for you. We'll do a general facility utilization analysis based on the capacity numbers. So when we look at the enrollment, the capacities that you've given us for the buildings, we'll project those out, and you'll see where you're at in those out years with the room that you have in those buildings. And then there's a number of maps that depict a lot of different things: in attendance areas, migration, consensus trends, and so on and so forth. The next page is one that I never cover because it's a pretty heavy formula, and it's one that Rob developed, and it's worked very well for the firm, and it's been very effective in developing enrollments. The next page is a sample page of what you'll see in the enrollment report. I believe this is from Andover. This is a sample at Andover. But if you look at the top graph there where it talks about Cottonwood Elementary, shows a capacity of 600. And then if you go across, it shows 16, 17, 18, 19, their enrollments. It shows how many students reside in that district, in that elementary district, the green numbers across there. How many students actually attend the school, and then how many students reside and actually attend in that elementary district. And then we project that out, and eventually then you'll see the over capacities. You'll get to a point, if you look at the bottom one there on the second Andover Middle School, shows an enrollment capacity of 850. And you can see out as they get out in 23, 24, and 24, 25, they go over their capacity. And so those over capacities are shaded, and this graph will show you on that 5-year projections of where you're at with numbers of students. The next page is just a sample page of the graphs and some of the forms that you will get. There'll be a number of them. They're high quality and are very easy to read and very effective to use in your public presentations. The next page is a scope of the service, the data collection that we'll be collecting. We'll be looking at your student data back for the past 10 years. And then you can see all of the other things that we do collect. We work extensively with the city, the county, a lot of other entities in the community. to project these numbers. You can see the other data that we come up with. The one thing I would say is that what's very, very important is the data that we receive at RSP. The accuracy of that data is so very, very important. So I know Rob and the consultants will talk with me more about that, but the accuracy of the data that we get from the district goes a long way in preparing a report, getting it out on time, and making sure it's a quality product. The next is just project approach. This talks about the cost of the project. It includes the housing developed data, the 5-year student population projections, migration information where it shows where your students are each year, whether they've moved from different elementary districts or maybe they're not in the district anymore. It has a lot of migration information, the attendance matrices, which I just showed you, and a lot of development, housing development and development information in the district. The completion date, I believe, and Superintendent Feldkamp could maybe talk more of that, but I think we're talking in February or March that this would be completed. Next page, we have a list of references. We work with, mainly the Midwest, but we work with a lot of districts here in Kansas. In fact, we're working with Bonner, Leavenworth, Piper, Lawrence, KCK, and a lot of other districts, and we do have some references there. Last page is just why we believe RSP is the best choice. We take a lot of pride in working closely with the administration, your board, your community, and resulting in credibility not only for us, but for the district and for this board and others that will be using this information. Again, we project 97 or better percentage in forecasting the statistics on enrollment, and we've been very, very successful. In many cases, we're in the 98 and 99% in the 5th year, so we take a lot of pride in that. We have a lot of extensive experience working with school districts that are growing real fast. And I know you folks are growing some, but we've had a lot of success with those folks too. So with that, we believe that we're a very impartial third-party worker for your district and can provide you a lot of good information. And we hope that we're able to do this project and be a part of your bigger project, which is your strategic planning, and be able to provide that information for DOR, which is really important in their study. So with that, I'd entertain any questions you have ready for me. We stand ready to serve the district in any way we can.
Questions, anyone?
Go ahead, Kaya, you have that.
I don't know. I must be half asleep. I don't know. I don't have any questions.
Oh, that's fine. I thought you were going to ask one.
You did such a good job. I have no questions.
So I noticed that you were careful about delineating between an enrollment analysis and demographics. Can you describe a little bit about where it seemed like you were careful about that? So I just want to know what the difference is, because we've been talking about demographics.
Well, in the report, we do a lot with the demographics of the district, with race, with free and reduced lunch, all kinds of different demographics. So that is an actual part of the proposal. The enrollment analysis, is basically numbers.
Right.
Gives you the number of kids that are going to be in a school or in an area. And then that information is broken down further demographically. It depends on what the district demographic information that the district wants. And so you'll work that out with Rob as you prepare to set up the procedures for what you want.
Do we get to a point where we, because obviously number enrolled is important, but how the tax base changes may be equally important. So do you guys do anything about, predicting, okay, we're gonna grow by X number of kids, but the tax base is gonna grow or decrease by Y number? Or is that not within the scope of this?
Well, we take all those things into consideration, and we do work with the superintendent and the administration and the business folks in that arena, but it's, you know, that's maybe a little bit outside of our, step, but we do work as, you know, as a part of that, using that information as a part of our study.
So I think, Lauren, as we finalize the scope on this, we probably need to make sure that whatever inputs either Dustin or Amber would need are accounted for somewhere, whether it's here or somewhere else. We need to make sure that we have all the right inputs, and I don't know what they are, but it would seem like the growth of the tax base would be an example, maybe,
Yeah,
one of
I
those
can see
things.
that.
Well, do you have housing trends in this? I mean,
Yes, there will be.
And that
I
would-
mean, number of
Well,
housing
that
units
might
or?
cover it.
That's obviously one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do a whole section on the development that's going on in the district. We project the yield rates for single-family homes, multi-family, structures, things like that. But yes, we do a lot of work with what we call the graying of a neighborhood or the regreening of a neighborhood. So you may have a neighborhood in town that was built, I don't know, 25 years ago. And is it graying or is it regreening, which we mean, are those homes being sold and families moving in now, and is it generating more kids? So we do a lot of work in a big section on the development.
I did think of a question. So, the attendance is a big thing on the calculation, but if you're doing the study, you know, at the beginning of the year, we might still have attendance skewed a little bit because of COVID, right? Or not?
That would be part of the study.
Yeah, but
No, we are doing some work right now with enrollments, during this time
Yeah.
of the pandemic. What we're finding is that
I see.
the type of schooling that you're offering at certain times, so if you're an in-person district and you've had that going, that's producing a certain number of things happening right now enrollment-wise. If you're remote learning, then that's producing a certain kind of trend. And, you know, this has only really been a 1 year or year and a half kind of deal, but we are doing a lot of work in that area, trying to help districts to project. Because basically what's happened is people that have been in complete shutdown, remote type learning, what they're finding is their enrollment has been on the decline. And so, you know, I'm not saying one is better than the other, it's all related to health and the guidance that we get from people. But, we are doing some work in that area, and that would be taken into consideration in these.
So would we be getting good information at this time, during the pandemic?
I don't know.
You know,
Well, all
I
our
get.
information is good, it's just that the past 4 years, you know what the trend was there, and then you have the data now. I would
Yeah.
assume that you could make some assumptions.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can draw some
Yeah.
conclusions from it, but we're in a time right now that's just been so difficult. Especially in last year's projections or this year's projections from last year. And, it's just, you know, there's just so many things going on right now, it's just hard to predict.
So you say 97% over 5 years, has this method been in use longer than that to where you can kind of have an idea of I would assume that there's a diverging accuracy the further out you look.
There is. We do 10-year projections too. They're not as accurate, you know, I think they're around 95% of what they've been. But
Just
Our
super
projections,
good.
our projections for 5 years are, I don't know how he does it, but he does it.
One thing I saw in here was as far as the student information that you need, what's your procedures on protecting student data, or is it anonymized so that can't be, you know, when you talk about data integrity and that kind of stuff, you know?
Absolutely. You know, we take care of that and we work with the district on, you know, what they want to use in the reports, and so.
because I would imagine that you probably don't want to be in possession of identifiable information. You want to anonymize, like key in your data.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Tanya. So in a previous meeting, you told us, I think, what the number of families that chose, like I think that you had a number of families that chose to do like homeschooling or some other virtual school that we think might come back. They were here, then they left, then, what you're hearing is they might come back after the COVID.
I don't remember I had an exact number. I think we just estimated.
I was just trying to think or figure out if you knew that number or that percent, if
I
that would
don't
be.
off the top of my head,
Okay.
but since we've started school, a lot of those families who have started homeschool or other virtual have come back.
Okay.
So some of them have already started to come back. Others have indicated, next year.
So it's not a significant number.
No, no.
Well, do you just look at the student data as of like a reporting date to the state, or are you looking, is it the start, end, or multiple months, or,
It's data that's submitted to the state on the dates that are required. Is it October now?
Yeah, it's those
September
66.
20th.
Still is, yeah.
So what does the interaction with the county or city look like? Is that actual meetings, or is it just a request for information? You take that information, use it, or?
Both.
Okay.
Rob will spend a lot of time out here, or one of the other GIS people, they meet with the city administrator, or the county and city people, and get data, and then, of course, we make requests for just information from them too, but we do have face-to-face meetings with most of those people.
I would assume that the projections, because it looks like that there's, different factors of, indexes and that kind of stuff that you're plugging in are taken into consideration whether the city or the county has incentives out there for businesses and incentivizing growth, and that would then drive these indexes and factors and projections.
The all information that we get from those folks, from economic development, from city, county, and it does make a difference, it will drive some of those.
anything else? Anyone?
Again, we thank you for your time. If there are any other questions that do come up, make note of them, and you can get them to me. Stacia will be in contact with you. I don't know if I need to stick around for an action item or not,
I
but
don't think so.
if you need to call me, you have my number also, so. Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have some gentlemen from Capital Electric, I believe.
Yeah, we'll have Russell and Mike, if you guys want to come on up, I'll kind of get you started here. This is a process of bidding that we started, I don't know, a couple of months ago, but the Keystone, are you guys familiar with Keystone? The bid, they're probably not, but this is who we did the national bid through that I talked about a couple of months ago. And so people like Musco and other companies, they bid through, yes, they bid through the state bid system. So that's why what you have, the documentation on the quote, was what Keystone provided us as the best bid under the bid package. So it turned out to be Musco Lighting. And these two gentlemen, I'm not sure, are you guys working on the city light plan right now? But they're very familiar with Musco and the process, and as part of I guess, are you the contractors for this kind of a process? Okay, so I think the best thing is to do, they have the bid that shows a retro fit using the existing light poles. And then they also included a bid that includes new poles and lights. And when I was kind of looking through this, a couple of the major things I saw was if on a retrofit, there's a 10-year warranty. On an all-new fit, it's a 25-year warranty. So that's a significant difference in this. And then I'll just kind of let you get, I mean, I know some of the board members will have questions about candlelight power, wiring, those kinds of things. So how do you want to start this? Do you want to answer questions, or would you have?
We'll answer questions.
The big downfall, I think, is the warranty on the 25-year. I mean, you could spend a lot of money in 15 years on lighting the retrofit, you know. Not necessarily the pole's in bad shape, but just the maintenance of this stuff is 15 years, and you have, I don't know how much the bid was more, but that's a good point. That you can't eat a lot of money on just maintaining lights in 15 years.
And that's labor, materials, everything.
So, yeah, the warranty is everything, so you don't have to touch it basically,
Yeah,
for 25 years.
It's a no-touch warranty.
So when you look at the new fit, the bid for 278, that does include moving moving the new poles into the most premium location.
Yeah, it's gonna be out of sight flying to the fans, because right now they're pretty close to the track, and you probably have complaints about that.
Yeah, they're gonna move back just a little bit, 15 foot, I think it was.
15 foot on visitor side, 30 foot on the home side.
And the wiring is all new, down the poles. And then I think Brad Thompson, who I've been working with, he mentioned, and I guess this is the wiring under the football field already new, or do you know that?
Yes, I helped replace that wire going under. I think they hit it when they redid the turf.
Yes.
So I went out there and helped replace that wiring going underneath the field to the G poles on the south side, west side.
Yeah.
So that is all new there. So I wouldn't necessarily have to replace all the wiring. I'd say if you want to replace the poles, replace the poles, not the wiring. We're replacing the wiring going down the poles anyways. Rather you go retrofit or new.
The speaker brackets that you see there, just to explain that. If you keep the existing poles, we already got the brackets on those poles. If we went with different poles, Brad explained to me that he would recommend moving the speakers off of the new poles and just putting them up on the press box in key locations. It'd be a lot cheaper than trying to attach it to the new poles. And I don't know about the integrity of the poles or how that all is designed, but.
Well, what it's gonna do is if they go on the new poles, then they're gonna probably increase the size of it, you know, to compensate for the weight of the speakers. Cause each one of the speakers are weigh 75 to 100 pounds.
Right. So that was one of the things, that's that plus, the plus 10,000 is to make sure the new light poles would take on the speaker systems, correct?
Because there's wind loads that we have to comply by, so it's 90 miles an hour. That pole has to stay up for 90 miles an hour before it's sustained.
And then a couple other things Brad pointed out, the new poles, if we went with new poles, they're actually just a little bit taller than the existing. And then explain the difference, I mean, the 40 candlelight versus the 50. I know that Drew had a question about that.
Well, what's our seating capacity, because that's where the standards
The seating capacity?
of our seating.
I don't,
Is it under 5,000?
oh gosh, yes. Oh, yeah, I mean, I think the existing bleachers the visitor bleachers hold about 400. Maybe. And then the new bleachers, I don't know if they hold 1,000. I think
Yeah,
that-
the only consideration, because a lot of times if you have, larger seating, based on the student that's further away, like IES, they, for a class 2, is 50-foot candles recommendation.
Yeah.
But some of it is based upon distance as well as, what is, the more likelihood that your historically, for something like this, it's closer to 40, but is there consideration that if in the future, over the life of the system, you know, we're going to be doing more and more live streaming, and more video and that kind of stuff, is there a,
But really, the 40-foot candle still is gonna look like a 50 with the LED, because the color of the light.
the 5,000 on the color? So, is a 40 the average? Is that the minimum? What is, cause?
40 is probably the average.
Okay, with a 2-to-1 ratio?
The one thing Brad told me that, I mentioned this, but they're putting in new lights at Junction City, was it Andover? Mays, and they're all going with 40s. And these are much bigger stadiums with more seating capacity.
Right.
And so that's, he said 40 is what, he just recommended 40s.
The 50-foot candles used to be very common with metal halide fixtures.
Okay.
Then as everybody's changing to LEDs, they're going more
What?
40 because it's a brighter light.
Can we, cause one of the things that, that I'm interested in is, like, what was it originally designed for? What is, a like-for-like replacement, and then what is considered upgrade, right? So now, some of it is inherent upgrade just because of the technology, right? It's just a better technology. But metal halide is still around, and I was just like, what is, cause I'm sure there's people that, in the community that are saying, well, why don't you just replace what's there? And is there a significant cost to go to LED versus just replacing it?
Well, you're gonna have energy savings with LED.
Right, but as far as just to answer that question, so that,
It's gonna be way brighter. It's gonna get a lot better feel. And, you can watch it live stream now, which I have, and you can see dark spots.
yeah, I actually noticed it when we did, there was a drone that was an overhead shot that I saw, it was really dark, patchy, a lot of shadows and everything, versus what, it looks kinda like the example that you were given, before and after, but, again, I go back to because knowing that LED costs have gone down over time, I don't even know that maybe it's about the same amount to just go LED now, or is it still cheaper to do metal halide? I know that metal halide is much less common. It's probably 90+% of the market
I don't
is.
even think it's that much cheaper. To even put up the green and Musco and metal halide for the LED, what's the?
I can't even, I haven't done one for a while.
Yeah. The other one obsolete.
Yeah, I know Musco still does it.
Yeah, it's real good.
But the recommendation would be to go LED.
Okay.
Right, but I'm not saying it's not a preference. I'm just saying.
What's the cost difference?
Right.
Are
What
we
paying extra
completely
for it?
shot, or if we just fix one bank, or to replace all four?
That's definitely something to ask Brad about, like what would be the cost difference of metal halide. He can give you that answer, we probably can.
Yeah, I'm not objecting to paying, getting overall best value, right? It's just knowing the details of what those different cost options are, and even knowing, okay, if somebody in the community asks me, says, hey, okay, well, you're going LED and you're going 40-foot candle, I don't know if the original design, because metal halides drop in light output a lot over their life.
Yeah, over time.
Right, and I don't know that we've ever gone out every 10 years and just replaced them all.
Never
But
been
you're
replaced.
supposed to maintain.
We've been out here, I haven't, but Russell's been out here, we went up to the east side before.
Yeah.
Repaired it.
So, was the original, if you just replace what was out there, does that get you 20? And then this, because then you start to understand the value of going with LED, right? It's not an apples to apples, it's really, you're getting much better.
You're getting a much better product for the LED.
Right, but can I get some numbers
And you get
to
the-
show that? Because if they can calculate 40-foot candles with all of this, then is it not possible to?
For 40-foot candles, you're probably gonna have more fixtures LED than you would, or more fixtures metal halide than LED.
Exactly, so then if you were to just replace what we already have, does it get you 20, 15, 10, 25?
Years wise?
No, as far as foot candles.
Oh, foot candles, replace what you got.
Yes, yep.
As in replace the lamps or the new lights that must go up, metal halide? You talking about going up there and relamping it?
Yeah, to say, first of all, is that what we're seeing, is the lamps are actually bad, or is it the ballast of the entire
That's the
assembly?
problem, is you change the lamp out, it might go out in a week because the ballast is bad.
Right, so that makes sense.
You're going through all ballasts and that gets real expensive when you start replacing ballasts.
$400 a piece.
Right,
That's just line, not the install.
right. See, but that, to me, that's the comparison that we talked about when we first, was just, what's the base case of just doing this? And I suspect that the LEDs,
You have to go up to get a better product of what you've got, to go out there and get all the new ballasts and all new lamps and everything. You have to go up there and re-aim all those fixtures because they're all out of whack. You got dark areas
Yep.
everywhere.
and that would be part of the base case, you know, say, okay, if you're just working with what you have, and you had to, and to do it right,
Mm-hmm.
how much would that be? And then is LED, and I think it's possible LEDs could ultimately be cheaper.
In the long run.
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Over the life expectancy of it, yes.
Yeah, so that would be, you know, some information to say, okay, that justify what in some people's minds in the community might be, you know, a luxury item or something that is not necessary. You could say, okay, well, and we could demonstrate, you know, hey, over the life, you get this, and right now we're spending this much, you know, on maintenance, but if we got with, you know, one option we have is a 25-year no-touch warranty, and that just basically, that current budget item or whatever we're spending goes to zero for 25 years. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Sort of.
Well, are we, I mean, you guys have been, I mean, it sounds like some of you have been up there before, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, our lights just basically shot to the end.
Yeah, it's rubber cord, that stuff goes bad, it's getting to the end of its life for sure.
I mean, when were those lights installed?
I don't know.
It was in the 90s.
Late 90s,
Yeah.
Late 90s?
Well, and then, I mean, you guys just do the Musco, I guess, because Musco had the low bid through this thing, you guys do Musco installations, is that?
We've been installing Musco for about 24 years, 23 years. And they have a great warranty, they have a great service program. If they don't have a tech that comes in this area to do the repair, we do the repair. And Russell lives in this town, I work at my school district, Morgan High School. So, I mean, we're well known, we do a great job, and Russell knows too.
You guys
They have a
take-
huge market share, I think.
Like 80% of the world market.
Yeah, that's basically all the high school fields, that's all we're putting out, is Musco, it's everybody's, I mean, it's just quality product, and we can't beat their warranty.
And we got a data center where you guys may not even know a light goes out. But they'll turn the
They'll call
lights
you,
on.
they'll call you,
Or
for
they'll
sure.
call us and say, there's a light out, talking about you need to fix it. So
That's under the, when you have the warranty, or is that just all the time through the life of it?
that's through the warranty and through controlling. You guys can turn on the football field lights with your phone.
You can program to come on anytime you want, or just turn on while you're coming. Or laptop.
I have a question. So Drew was talking about retrofitting the old poles with new lights. Have you done that before successfully? Is
Oh,
that
Yes, we
like
did,
something?
well, me and him, we did, Lawrence rec, all the rec, softball, all their fields, parks and everything. And, yeah, I mean, we took down take off the tops and put new tops on existing poles, yes.
So what's the added benefit, other than I know it maybe places them in a more desirable location? What would be the added benefit for new poles rather than the existing
15-year
ones?
maintenance on top,
So the 25 year.
5-year warranty with it, you only get 10
10,
years.
so you get an extra 15 years and you don't have to touch it. So, I mean, and like at Holcomb and Lawrence there, I've been back there, we did a retrofit there. I haven't touched a lot of the LED, new poles and new wiring, all that stuff, but a lot of times the retrofits, I'm out there kind of maintaining them a lot.
And that was gonna be my next question. On those retrofits, do you have to do more upkeep of those in general than the newer ones that have been placed?
Depends on the pole. You know, it's just the good grounding, because if we're just using the old existing wiring and the old existing pole, we don't know what the existing electrician did to that pole. You know, if the grounding's good, it's fine, or you have a short, or it's getting ready to go bad. So you might get a new light on top and the pole goes out, because of the existing, you know, installation.
So you're kind of gambling then when you're using old poles, you're
You're
just kind of.
gambling, yeah. And the new poles, I'm just being honest, but, the new poles, I mean, it's just gonna look a lot cleaner, taking them old poles out of there and.
Because there's gonna be stuff strapped on, there's gonna be driver boxes strapped on the existing poles, you're gonna see a band on the pole.
Bolts and bands and bolted on this existing pole, which it's doable, I mean, don't get me wrong, but it just looked a lot cleaner if there was a new pole.
Those, sorry, one more question. Those old poles sit very close to the track. Is there any liability risk for those poles being that close to the track at all, or is that?
I don't know about the liability.
The fences. I was thinking the pole sat on the inside, but it's the fence that sits on the inside. Okay.
And it's kinda odd too, because I was
It's on
talking
the
about
inside
that.
of the fence.
It sits
Well,
right up against the fence.
It's on the
doesn't it?
bleacher side of the fence.
Okay.
But how many lane is that track now?
8,
It's 8 now?
yeah. I think the biggest advantage would be, I mean, for the new poles, would be you're moving them to the most ideal location. And you're buying something that's gonna last for,
That's where the old poles used to be, is back there.
I didn't, yeah.
Before they.
Probably
blew
a
up
20
and
this
fell
is-
on the old concession stand.
This is probably a 25 to 30 year purchase,
Yeah.
at least.
Well, at least 25.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
So on the new proposal, other than the infrastructure underneath the turf, everything's new.
Yes.
What was the box? There was a 600,
Well, there's a panel out there that's marked 240 volt.
yeah, yeah.
And it's supposed to be rated at 600 volt.
Cause it's 480 out there.
It's
Gotcha.
480 volt. We don't know how that happened.
But that's one of the upgrades.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that includes in the new.
That
new
shouldn't
pole.
have happened.
Yeah.
Definitely needs to be done, regardless.
Now, we're gonna clean up the panel rack and everything else and make that look better.
Yeah, it's a new panel, new Musco cabinet, and a new whole rack out there. We just go up there and you turn them on and off with a key switch. And your phone, whatever you.
And this includes all permitting costs and everything?
Yes.
And we're actually out at the rec commission putting new poles up right now at the softball fields. And, but they're going LED. Yes, it's turned out pretty good. Took all the wood poles down.
Anything else from the board? Well, thanks, gentlemen, for coming in and answering our questions on that. And
Thank you.
we got it as an action item later. We'll kind of keep, I'm sure Lauren will keep you updated.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
All right. Aaron, still here?
I'm still here.
And
Before you have it, or you got it.
You doing all right, Chris?
Oh, yeah.
Let me know if you need a break.
We're getting close. Let's get up out of here.
His Gatorade's almost gone.
Zoom into the top tab. Perfect. Good evening. Good night. Okay, so, high school bond project update. Everything, there's been a lot of activity out at the site if you've had a chance to drive by and see, and some great progress going on. So we'll, start with, high-level budget information. You can see in the bond fund summary there that, no changes to the overall construction GMP and, overall contingency funds. With the contingency breakdown, the top line there being that district GMP contingency, which was $1 million set aside for district use. So the current value is $884,000, meaning that we've used, $120,000. The majority of that was $85,000, for the CTE, HVAC was really that big portion there. There is a breakdown in change orders, on the third page that kind of delineates that a little bit further. I have very, probably overly conservatively forecasted that down to, 800,000. Meaning that I know there are a couple of, design clarification issues that are outstanding that McCown Board is still pricing. And then one district, change with that we have talked about previously moving forward with is, doing abatement in West Campus, and replacing some flooring there that wasn't in the original scope. So I kind of forecasted that into that 800. To kind of offset that, on the last page in that change order summary, you'll see we did have a credit come through for the storage of the soil on site. And due to kind of the complication of returning money that's already loaded with fees and overhead, and the owner contingency line item not being loaded with those things, we put those credits into kind of a separate allowance bucket that the district's controlling. So we had a credit for the soils and a couple other decreasing the size of the sign. So we'll be using that for some upcoming changes as well. Soft cost contingency has stayed the same as has the district project contingency and facility improvement allowance. So overall, I think it's tracking really well. A few things that have come up that have been dealt with pretty quickly and easily. So scroll down. So substantial completion dates have remained the same since our last update, still targeting the December 2nd substantial completion of the Learning Center being our next major milestone. Weather days, get into the schedule a little bit more here. So put this on there here last month, starting to just update you on the weather days used. So November had 2 contractual weather days. They used 5, so that's a -3. I put a yellow on that, but the good news there is that despite those additional weather days, they are still on schedule. So they were tracking a little bit ahead of schedule going into those really rainy days that we had in November. So I don't anticipate any potential claims out of that. We'll go up to the side of the next page. Thank you. So key deliverables, we're still trying to set up a trial run of the typical classroom AV. Had some supply issues with the whiteboard, so may not get that done this week as anticipated, but we still have plenty of time to vet that out. And then the final AV design, that's been tracking really well, coordinating with Forest and the district, and I think we've kind of gotten that scope wrapped up, and they're gonna start coordinating that design into the documents. Other key milestone dates. So if you have peeked on site, they are finishing up all the slab on grade for the Learning Center. They should be pouring the last areas of F, which is the actual classroom, the part of the building this week. So it's been pretty exciting to see all that out there, getting all the underground done. And then best case, you might see some structural steel in the air before the new year, but kind of putting the first week of January on there, just in case there's any more weather or anything they come across. But they are anticipating that to deliver the week in between Christmas and New Year's. So looking out a little bit further, we'll be doing starting some parking lot work on the north parking lot next year in May, and then have the Learning Center building dried in with walls and roofing towards the summer in July, and then getting into inspections and turning it over in December. And then again, on safety, no job site injuries or lost time accidents to date have been reported. Go next page for us. So a couple of overall project items. Winter break work, while students and teachers are out of the building over the next couple weeks. The county board and crews will be swapping out the rooftop units on the CTE building. So you might see a crane out there, either Friday or Monday doing that. They're also gonna be doing some work inside the TPAC area, rerouting some roof drains. And they will also be repolishing the gym entry floor that was done over the summer to get that looking better with the cracks and the residue from the VCT. So that'll happen here over the next couple weeks before people come back into the building. DLR, McCown Gordon, QA, QC review. So as the documents were finalized, the team has kind of been going through with their internal departments, just double, triple checking details, specifically where buildings tie together. So that's a few of those future potential change orders that I was forecasting have to do with just maybe bettering some of those details for water intrusion and drainage. So we're still working through a couple of those. Test drive classroom furniture, that all went well. Unfortunately didn't get to have people use it quite the entire time, but did get some good feedback from students and teachers through the survey. And we have a call with the administration on Wednesday to review all that feedback and move forward with the design. And then we spoke last month about use of contingency for enhancements to the current bond scope. So I finalized that list, and I didn't update my date there, but got to sit down with the administration this week and review the estimated costs for some additional items and prioritize that. So just have some upcoming meetings there. Go to the next page. You have these photos in your packet, but these are some construction photos as of last week with the foundation wall, this is the northwest corner of the classroom addition. Just showing the excavation for the MEP under slab in that same area. You can see the day we were out there, they were just finishing up the slab on grade core in the administrative wing. And this is the change order summary I referred to, so wasn't going to go through that in detail. Lauren and I've been through all those and been through it with the DLR and the town team. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Amber, Aaron, one of the things we didn't talk about was the idea of looking at a company that might help us with the move. And we hadn't even discussed that with the board yet. That, you know, at one time we talked about having the students help us. That may be a nightmare. I don't think that'll work. I mean, they can help in some regards, but we're looking seriously at a company that will come in and help us decide on which, you know, the furniture, the existing furniture, that you can help me out. If it's going to be salvageable, what's reusable. I think we're going to need some help on that move in December.
I think there's several facets. We're having a couple different companies help them get some more information gathered and proposals put together to kind of bring and consider. But I did walk through the buildings with Superior Bowen Moving and Storage just to get give them an idea of what the scope is so they could propose what may be helpful. They have helped North Kansas City School District with their moves out of buildings that they've been in for decades. And so very similar type start over renewal of all their things. So yeah, they can help with the organization of redistribution or disposal, figuring out what to do with things like the composites and the plaques and all these items that you may be using some or storing some, and then even decommissioning areas that aren't necessarily going to be reused but need to be renovated in the meantime, and moving stuff out, moving stuff back in, and that whole process and logistics, and then the simple stuff of providing the boxes and the tools and utilities to facilitate physical move.
As we walk through this, it is not a simple process. It's very complicated. I mean, we love to use the students as much as we can, but I think we have to be realistic.
Well, how much time do we have? Because I mean, that was brought up when we were looking at the schedule, it's really tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the actual move is only a couple days, from the time you get, push these boxes from one area to the other. But as we've kind of discussed with Lauren and Mark and Mitch, is starting that planning process now and starting to get teachers and staff organized so they are continuously packing. There's not going to be that much physical stuff to move outside of books and personal effects, because we are doing home furniture. But simultaneously, the areas that are being vacated need to be decommissioned and emptied. The East Campus is going to be no longer, and West Campus needs to be cleaned out for renovations as well. So there's kind of more parts and pieces that all have to happen at overlapping times.
Do you see any risk to the current schedule?
No, I don't see any risk. I think there's plenty of time in the schedule to do it, if it's planned and executed properly.
It's just I guess I assumed that there was movers involved, but you're saying we don't really have that built in, so we're probably have some additional costs that we're looking at in terms of.
There is a small amount built into the schedule for move costs, but it did not account for full move management. If you recall, when I proposed on the project in the RFP for the owner's rep, that was listed as potential additional service. And I think I provided an hourly wage for that, but as I talked to Lauren, I have those skills and can do them, but I think it's probably better for me to focus on the project and get somebody who is more specifically focused on that to do that part of the work.
It seems intimidating, a little, to make it all work in a very short time period.
Yeah.
And so,
We have to be able to get the staff, and the people, the professionals that do that.
they know.
I've
Yeah.
been through that to work, and
So-
they get as many bodies as it takes, and they get it done on time.
So when we think about, we're not gonna reuse the furniture, we do have to get rid of it. Should we be looking for a mover, or should we be looking for almost a demo company type? Would it be cheaper to get somebody to come throw it all away than it would to try to move it and repurpose it?
There are different options. So a company like Superior Bowen and others out there that are movers, they also facilitate decommissioning and disposal or repurposing. It's kind of up to you guys if you want to go through the process of tagging certain things for donation or sale, or if it just says if it's not going to the new space, it's gone.
I think to the extent you can, I'd rather have someone use it and throw it away, but if that costs us $100,000 to facilitate that process, then it may need to get thrown away.
Yeah, So I think there's different ways you can handle it and different ways we can have, them scope it out to give you those options.
Well, I think, I mean, it's probably gonna be a sizable enough thing that we'll probably wanna run it back through us, but I think we probably ought to start all that and then look at the options like he's talking about in terms, so.
Well, cause one thing that, as we were walking through and talking to them about was, for example, all the classrooms around TPAC, those are all getting, fresh carpet and paint. Well, they're loaded with stuff, so all that stuff has to come out for the summer, and then all has to be moved back in. And it's just a task that seems probably, a little heavy for the internal, custodial staff, maintenance staff.
Well, and you get students involved, I mean, you got liability, I mean, there's just.
Chasing cats.
Yeah, I mean, I think you gotta have for lack of a better word, a professional company come in and just do that.
Yeah. So, early stages, I should be getting, some feedback from Superior Bowen, tomorrow, hopefully, and I'll go through that, with Lauren and everybody. I have a call on Friday with another company. Also, Luke Dietz with McAllen, Lauren, I haven't had a chance to mention this to you yet, but, he mentioned that Lawrence, School District has a really sophisticated process, for their youth management that they've used. So, maybe having a discussion with them, and he was happy to make an introduction. But, yeah, so we're gonna gather some information and, try and get some different options to consider.
Seems reasonable to keep it on time and moving forward, to me anyway.
Okay,
Thanks, sir.
all right. Thank you, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Everyone holding out, okay? Chris? All right, Tanya?
Okay. You have two documents there in your packet, the spring reopening plan and then the new gating criteria. And these are all in draft form. We did have a committee get together last Monday to look this over, and we've made a few changes based on feedback from that committee. And we had 3 board members serve on that. Basically, the spring reopening plan is just a continuation of the fall reopening plan, but now we have included a few more bits of information that we need to know for spring. So it's a shorter document. I put a few things in the front, what parents need to know. So all those health and safety protocols from the fall we'll continue to use. And then we go into our continued commitment to safety. I did highlight on there that we've adopted the adjusting gating criteria, but obviously that's pending board approval tonight. The learning platforms are basically the same. We still have the on-site. We will have the remote for those families who choose that. And then there's your proposed gating criteria. That's the blank form. And I'll get into that further. We do break out on the next page there, page 5, the on-site learning, what that looks like. It's basically the same. The remote learning has changed just a bit. Elementary will be the same. Middle school, we are switching to the Edgenuity platform, and we do have a teacher who is strictly devoted to that and will monitor the education and the work and progress of those students. High school is a little bit different. It will be, we had looked at doing Edgenuity first with the high school as well, but it was almost like reinventing education. And it was going to be very cumbersome for the students, for the teachers. Edgenuity is pretty cumbersome if you're looking at that many credit-based courses. So what we have decided to do at the high school is more of an asynchronous way of education. So the students will not be watching live, but their content will be delivered through Google Classroom like it is now, but it will not be a live classroom environment. So they'll be working on that, on their assignments and watching the videos provided by their teachers. But then teachers will be assigned to specific courses that they currently teach, and then they'll be meeting with those students during their plan time. So during the plan time, the teachers will take attendance with those students, touch base with them on their assignments, clarify anything that they're having trouble with. They'll provide tutoring opportunities, they'll meet with parents. So it's basically the same, but it's missing that live component, basically. And then the special education information there on page 7 and 8 is the same as before. Does anyone have any questions on just the spring reopening document before we move over to the gating?
And the reason we made this a lot more condensed was we can refer back to the original document with all the health information. We didn't feel like this was the most important information necessary for the parents to review going into January.
Okay, let's move over to the gating criteria. I have a separate document for you. The one that is in the spring reopening plan is the blank form. What you see on the other document is the completed form. These are the actual numbers that were on a report for last week. So they were updated on Tuesday of last week with the correct numbers, the actual numbers. So the first, you'll see the green, yellow, and orange, and those are the low, medium, high, and highest risk, and then those are assigned a point value. The first two rows going across, incident rate and percent positive, are the actual Leavenworth County numbers. So if you go over to the value column where it says 595.66, that was the actual incident rate for Leavenworth County that they posted last Monday afternoon. And that would put us in the red, and that would be worth 4 points. The one directly underneath that is the percent positive. It was 15.27%. If you refer back to the left, you'll see that that puts us in the red and 4 points. The bottom two, or the lower two, student absenteeism and staff absenteeism, is where we get to bring in our very own numbers. Now, we thought instead of just using Tonganoxie COVID numbers, it was more important for us to use our actual student absenteeism and staff absenteeism, so that we're using our in-school numbers. Because, as we've seen, our in-school numbers can be different from our community. So we're looking at student absenteeism, and what those numbers are is the average daily attendance from last year versus this year. So we're taking a look, same as the Leavenworth County data takes a look at the prior 2 weeks. That's what we did with our student and staff absenteeism as well. So I've run reports for the prior 2 weeks for 2019-20 versus 2021 to compare the differences in our absenteeism. So you'll notice that it was minus 0.1%, which put us in the green, and then that was worth 1 point. The staff absenteeism, this is one where we had to just really take a look at and adjust our numbers under the green, yellow, orange, and red. We looked at what percentage, if we had what percentage of staff absent, would that really put our buildings in a bind? So we need to run this report as a building. So Tonganoxie Elementary, for example, if they had over 20% of their staff absent, that would put us in the red and give us 1 point. Now, I ran this as a district for the prior 2 weeks instead of individual building, but I will break that out and look at that for individual buildings as well. So as I ran and compared all the buildings for staff absenteeism for the prior 2 weeks, we were at 2.5%, which put us in the green, and that gave us 1 point. So realistically, you know, there was a time where we had a significant number of staff absent at Tonganoxie High School. So at that point, that would have put us in the red for the high school. But the other buildings did not have a significant staff absent at that same time, so we would have been better in those buildings. The elementary did see quite an increase there toward the end, right before we went remote, so that would have made an impact as well if we were looking at those individual numbers and individual buildings at that time. Now, to get our total numbers for this whole chart, you would add your points going down that very last right column. So 4 plus 4 plus 1 plus 1 and that equals 10. You divide by 4 because that's the number of your criteria, so you're getting an average. That gave us 2.5. So if we would have looked at that 2 prior weeks data that I ran on last Tuesday, we would have been in the yellow and we would be in school. So we feel like this gives us a better view of what is actually going on in combination with our county and with our very own school district staff and students. So it combines the broad and the narrow perspective, and it gives us an actual number. Now, the better thing to do as we go forward would be to run those staff absenteeism numbers for individual buildings so that we can see, are we having a pocket of teachers at a certain school that are absent? Do we have a large pocket that we're not able to fill? So underneath the chart there, I've listed that bottom sentence, bottom couple sentences. Information in this chart is based on the prior 2 weeks of data. Staffing situations at individual buildings may cause a temporary move to remote learning, and we'll move back to on-site as soon as the staffing issue is resolved. So why would we shut the entire district down if we're only having a staffing issue, say at Tonganoxie Elementary? We would shut down Tonganoxie Elementary for that period of time until we get the staff back to a good level that we can function, and move right back into on-site. So not waiting this 2 weeks, 1 week, we're able to be more, react in a quicker fashion. So we're not waiting for 2 weeks to sit in the red. And looking at this chart, in order to go to red in this entire chart, we'd have to be in red for all 4 of those. But quite honestly, what's gonna shut us down would be a staff situation. And that's really what we want to look at. So our buildings would be looking at that daily. Even though we run this report for the prior 2 weeks, that's not gonna be what we're really focusing on. It's going to be, okay, what's happening here and now? What are we predicting for tomorrow, so that we're prepared to make those changes to move to remote and back to on-site as soon as we can. All right, that was a lot of information for you. I know you've had time to look at this. Outside of here, do you have questions on the remote learning, the on-site, the gating criteria, the reopening plan?
So there's 4 color categories,
Yes.
but there's really only 2 outcomes: in person and remote.
Yes.
Do we need yellow and orange?
We talked
Does that
about
make
that.
too
We
complicated
did
of
talk
a
about
chart?
that.
We talked about it, and what it would give us is an indication that we need to be preparing or looking toward moving. So while people outside of our offices probably don't care about yellow and orange, they just want to know if we're in school or out of school, we would use this as a metric to become more prepared, or at least give us a forecast to where we need to be watching more closely.
And then I like the concept of, Tonganoxie data and broader pandemic data, but the fact that all 4 of them have to be red to transition to red concerns me a little bit, particularly given, if the percent positivity went up to 60% for some reason, but the others were still yellow, I would think that could be enough to get us to do something more drastic. And so the fact that they all have to be red concerns me a little bit. I mean, I want to get these kids back and I want to keep them there, but it concerns me a little bit that you have to be red across that many categories that are varied, when 1 or 2 of them might be significantly higher and warrant some action. I like the framework, though.
I think one of the things we talked about, if we were running at 60, for example, then we felt like that would be reflective in either our absenteeism or in staff or student absenteeism.
At that point,
And I would especially say the staff absenteeism. That's how we kind of looked at it.
because a lot of these people are living in our community, and so if you have that high of a
I get it.
rate,
I'm just saying
it's gonna affect the
there's a
staff and students.
Possibility.
Wouldn't there be, what about we're still subject to if the county health director
Right.
says,
Or
close the schools, we have to
The
close the
governor
school.
or
I mean,
the
I don't know
county.
how that's
Right.
accounted for in the new stuff, or if we need a,
That's a given.
Yeah.
Well, and
That-
quite honestly, it doesn't really matter what's happening in the county. We really need to pay close attention to what's happening in our buildings.
If there's a county shutdown.
Right, yeah.
That'd be
I
the
was
only
just
way.
reiterating the fact that really, we wanna pay attention to what's going on in our buildings. We could be red completely in the northern part of our county, southern part of our county could be doing really well, but why would we shut down if all of our staff and all of our students are here?
Right. So another perspective to look at is that if, like, as a parent, if the county was 60%, I would still feel comfortable sending my kid to school because they're wearing a mask and the faculty's wearing a mask, and if you're mask to mask, you're not transmitting it. So, I mean, you have to quarantine. So, I mean, and the CDC and, I mean, they say, you know, schools are safe for kids to go to, and it's not a place that they're transmitting it. So, that's why that's why just a perspective, I guess, to consider.
So, can we operate with greater than 20% in any one building?
20% absent?
Yeah.
Well, at that point, you're using all of your subs, you know, and honestly, it depends. If Morgan Hunter says, hey, you know, we've only got 2 available subs today, they're all out serving other school districts. I mean, it really, there's such a huge combination of.
Right, but if 20%'s the line, then you really only have one thing. You have, we're in person, or we don't have enough staff to run school, and that's it.
Mhm. But I do think it's important to look at all
Right,
the
but
things that are happening.
Because you hit, I mean, have we ever gotten, what was our peak with student absenteeism throughout so far this
So,
year?
I don't know the
It's so
exact
hard to
number.
measure because some of them were designated to be quarantined, but they were never sick, and then they came right back. So we may have had a huge influx of students going home, but
Okay.
then they were back
What
2
was
days
that
later.
number?
I do not know.
I think,
But they're not considered absent if they're doing remote, right?
They were
were
working
just-
Right, they were
remote. They
working
just
from
switched
home.
to.
Okay, so that doesn't, that's a
Yeah.
great point. 'Cause
they,
I-
yeah.
Yeah, because if they're quarantined and they're still logging in,
Yeah,
they're
they
still
were.
considered not absent.
I don't know if we've had a student that was sick enough that could be remote. You know, that was, even if they were positive. If it was, it might have been for a day.
So, this student absenteeism, I think it's great, but are we concerned that we've got other sicknesses that might impact that number?
Well,
And not just COVID? I'm asking,
Oh, yeah, I mean.
because flu season's coming.
Sure, we don't differentiate, when I run those reports, it doesn't matter if
What it
you're,
is.
yeah, it's just
Okay.
absent, absent
Very
is
good.
absent.
Very good, thank you.
Well, and that's the difference based upon our average daily. That's not just like, hey, you got 10%, it's greater than 10% more than what we normally would have, is that right?
Yeah, it's comparing the difference at this exact same time last year versus this same time this year, and what the difference is.
So it's
Maybe.
greater than 10% of
You
what's
would think.
normal is,
You would
not,
think.
not 10% of the total school population size.
Right.
Okay.
I don't think it's gonna matter, you're not gonna have teachers, is teachers still a problem?
you know, we'll point out, we do have a total now of 6 on-site subs. We started out the year with 3, and in January, we're gonna have 3 more. Did talk to Morgan Hunter, the other day. Typically, we have anywhere between 98 and 99% fill, is what they call it, success rate. And currently, we're running anywhere between 92 and 93% success rate, and we are one of their highest clients. So, for a variety of reasons. I mean, location's part of it, but also that a lot of the subs do like to come and will accept work here. And then I know we talked a little bit about Morgan Hunter's, and I mean, there are so many variables for them. They're constantly hiring new people, but they're also constantly losing people. I mean, she couldn't tell me anything differently than the fact that we're currently running around 93% success.
Are we going, I mean, if we're looking at it on a building basis, is there a ability to implement this in a way to prioritize subs to the elementary over high school and that kind of stuff?
Well, there's some flexibility between, obviously, TES and TMS, and probably TMS and up to THS. A lot of times your elementary subs probably aren't as interested. I mean, just personally not interested in supervising. That say some won't. But we're even discussing that with the subs that we're hiring. You know, how flexible are you in working all age groups so that we have flexibility?
Are you saying like, if it was absenteeism at elementary, you push the subs there, it might make you
Right.
absent
That's
in
what
high
we would do.
school so that
Yeah.
you go remote at the high school instead of the elementary?
Yes.
Have that coverage.
Yes, that's what I was.
And that's the advantage of having six, exactly.
I mean, yeah, this whole thing's a crapshoot. I mean, well, the county data came out today and we're in yellow, then they back up to the data from the last 3 weeks and we've dropped out of the red on,
Yeah.
on all those days, so.
I mean,
I don't know, this is.
and that wasn't what he predicted.
Wasn't
2
what he
weeks.
predicted, and the numbers change
Yeah.
every week, so.
I mean, is this used by,
They changed back.
is this used by others? I mean,
Mhm.
This,
Yeah.
with the exception of the staff absenteeism, they just use the top three, is being used by Olathe, Shawnee Mission, DeSoto.
There was
Is
one
that it?
more, there was another one.
Yes, maybe Blue Valley, I can't remember.
You remember Cluster?
Those districts are using this without the staff absenteeism, which in my opinion, staff absenteeism is the most important part of that because it determines whether you can run school or not. We have found though, some districts in our league are not using any gating criteria, which I think is risky to some degree because you want, I'm big into data informed decisions. So we use data to drive what we decide. And we started out with the county data. Hey, we were convinced that that was a great way to go. Well, through experience, we found out we might not be mirroring the county data. So the best way I think to counter that is to add in our own personal data here and use a combination. But again, this is COVID and it's brand new territory, so.
So if we had to boil this down though, would it be accurate to say, unless we didn't have teachers, the likelihood of us going remote would be very low? Is that an accurate statement?
That is accurate as of this point, but if we had, say, all of our third graders absent, that's a red flag there to me. If we have a huge student absenteeism,
An outbreak.
But
Yeah.
based on your gating criteria, that wouldn't flip it.
You'd have to evaluate it.
You'd have to have all of them be red, so I'm,
Yeah, but when you have like staff being because part of these are gonna be quarantined, maybe
I
not
get it,
specified,
I get
you'd
it.
have staff being quarantined. So it would actually throw all of them potentially
Into one.
into red. Maybe not immediately, but very shortly after.
yeah. Now, one other quick question. And I only skimmed it, but didn't KDHE say that based on their guidance, K through 5 would never go remote? Is that right?
KSDE?
not KDHE did not. Kansas, KSDE, so the education department, they just want to keep kids in school.
I get it.
Yeah.
And we feel the same way, honestly. We want our pre-K through 5 kids in school, but if we don't have staff to run the building, then we just
Can't do it. Can't do it.
can't send kids. And we want our staff and our students to be safe and healthy, so we're just trying to balance all that out.
Well, I mean, it remains a living document, I guess.
Yeah, but-
So, I mean, if some trends in this change, like they changed on us before, I assume we could,
Revisit.
I mean,
If you had a lot of quarantine, back to your example of third grade, if they're quarantined, they don't count as absent.
If they're online.
Well, I was thinking a big outbreak, like
Oh,
if they were all,
oh,
everybody was
positives.
getting sick and, that
But
was.
they still check in, like you said, we have all volunteers that have been sick, they've still been able to check in, so you don't lose the absenteeism number. If they're checking in.
But if they're, so if my child is in elementary school and they have you know, they're positive for COVID, but they're still able, I mean, my parents, for example, both had COVID, and they both were able to I mean, they had runny noses. They, you know, they didn't have anything severe, so they quarantined, but they were up, you know, cleaning the house and
Right.
putting up Christmas lights and whatever. So if they are home and they're still doing their homework, whatever, then we don't care that it moves I mean, right? Like, why?
No, I'm just saying, that's how
Yeah.
this is set up. If we chose to set it up some way to reflect a big, you know, an outbreak on the student side, then it would just have to be redefined, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah, it depend on the situation too and what was happening, you know.
The only thing, I mean, in this last meeting, we had to approve the extracurricular plan. Do we have that documented, that that's all separate and outside of this and doesn't matter?
Right.
It is separate.
I mean,
We see it as.
Yes, the only thing we address in this gating chart is the learning modes. So this is just referring to learning, and athletics and activities were addressed in the plan that Cody presented.
They're separate.
Any other questions for Tanya?
I guess the only other thing I'd say is, while it's fresh in our minds, after we get back on January 4th or whatever that date is, I'd like for us to think through what worked with remote learning, what didn't work, and kind of be in a continuous improvement mode there. I think there's going to be no shortage of opinions there to share, some of which will probably be pretty passionate. So I think we ought to, in the spirit of, while it's fresh in our minds, we ought to do some analysis on what worked and what didn't.
Our administrators are working on that now, and Lauren and I were talking the other day, we have, as part of our accreditation, we have bought into this program called 5Lab, and it actually takes all of our data, and we just, in fact, added our data from classroom and how interactive kids are, do they participate or not. That is all in this big data pool that we have. And so once we get that to a point where we're ready to roll it out and show you, we'll bring that, and there's so much data that you can see. I mean, it puts in test scores, it puts in, you know, all the demographic, the absenteeism, everything, the engagement in Google Classroom. So once we have that up and running and we're ready to show, we can look at all the data and compare that with, you know, these students are remote, these students are on site, how's it working? But yes, I mean, to your point, our administrators are already on that. You know, they're working with their staff for continuous improvement on that. And I know we're gonna have even more feedback from this Thanksgiving to Christmas time that we've had and moving forward into the spring semester.
Justin, it's very important to us. It really is.
And are you asking for some kind of update at the January meeting at least?
It'll take us a little while to put that together.
Whenever it's available, I think just a, you know, kind of a top 10, what went well, and top 10, what we need to fix, something like that.
Okay.
Keep that.
Anything else related to the
So,
presentation?
when is the plan to resume school?
January 5th.
Be the first day back.
Yes, the first day back.
For all buildings?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Any other last questions? If not, we'll move to the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
Stephanie moved, Karen seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. That will move into public comment. We have one gentleman, I think, that'd like to speak tonight. Sorry, I can't read your first name.
That's all right, I never had a 3-year-old.
Me too, so, anyway.
My name's Don Curry. I was here a couple weeks ago when we were discussing what all those terms sports. Question was asked about elementary kids, so I appreciate you guys giving me a little bit of time to talk tonight. I've got 2 little ones, kindergarten and 2nd grade. Thank God my wife and I both have the ability to work from home. I do most of the time with an earbud in my ear, as does my wife, but at least allows us to flex with the kids and work with them a little bit. To the point on elementary, I came tonight to implore you guys to put the kids back in school. I mean, we're kind of seeing two issues in our own family and the other families we interact with. One is, the Kansas requirement 6 hours of education, and we do our best. I'm usually in 6 hours of conference calls. And my kid's on the computer, and they're both extremely smart, which is a blessing to us. But I think my second grader was done today with his worksheets by 8:30, and he starts at 7:30, and then he had some calls throughout the day. But for us, it's really the social impact of kids. We're being careful, we're doing the right thing. I've got a huge family in Bonner, we don't go see them just because they're not doing the right thing, trying to keep our kids safe and then trying to keep our teachers safe. I appreciate your guys' response and the plan you put together. I was pretty fired up the other week. But I'm just here to thank you guys for that and to ask that you do keep those elementary kids in school. We were delivering some Christmas presents to the neighbors who have children our own age, and as parents do, we were talking at the door. And the amount of disciplinary issues that are coming about in the homes is pretty high. We personally really limit our kids' screen time. Of course, they watch movies or something on Saturday morning or cartoons, but the rest of it's very limited, so it's very tough for me to tell my child, you can't have that computer, you can't play that video game, even if it's a math game, because I know that his reaction at the end of the day is not going to be beneficial to him. But I appreciate you guys really thinking about that for at least the K-5 folks. My sister's a teacher out west, and she teaches younger kids, and at that age group, there's such an impact that carries on for a long time. That not every age group has the same impact, so I appreciate you guys thinking about it. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thanks for sticking around.
I'm sure there's lots of people watching this. Would it be helpful as part of what Justin's saying is to encourage folks to message through an email or something like that?
I think
as
the
far as
buildings will reach out.
The details and that kind of stuff? Okay. So
I think
the buildings are gonna
I think we'll be proactive.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, move on, Lauren's report.
All right. Well, the first thing on mine is, I think most of you are aware of the Keisha decision. First, initially, by the board of directors a couple of weeks ago, there was a decision for no parent attendance. That was appealed by some parents that I was able to listen to some of their testimony. And then, of course, we went back to the board of directors for a vote and a lot of discussion, and then they overturned it. And so now each athlete gets 2 parents allowed to go, and that goes into effect, or went into effect actually last Thursday. But it's really up to the athletic directors, the administration, the parents to help with this. And all the league schools are working on this too. So it's, we're trying to be consistent is my whole message here. And it's not easy, when you got people coming in from other schools or, what their expectations are. But anyway, we're on this, we're working on it. We were at a wrestling tournament Saturday, and it was amazing how few of parents were actually there. They were using the online streaming as opposed to being there. It works both ways. So I wasn't able to go to the game Friday night. Was there a?
Well, I can't go because I
Oh.
don't have a player, but unless you let me.
Oh, that was the boys'
I could
game.
be the reporter.
I'm sorry, that was just the boys.
No, yeah, it was just boys. I know that, there's a lot of parents that are happy to be able to be there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's good to give them the option.
We'll make it work to the best that we can. Okay, the next thing is the bus replacement. I've asked Jill to put together a bid for January, and it's settled. We've gone through all the investigation and all the insurance part of it. They've contacted us, and this is what they've come up with. The bus was totaled. It's actually been hauled off of the lot that it was being kept in. The people that had the storage wanted it removed. It was moved late last week. So anyway, we're looking at replacing that with a bid next month. I'm just give you a heads up that that's coming down the road.
Lauren,
Yep.
this bus though was not, it was an extra bus she was driving.
It was, yes, it was an extra bus, and so actually, we were planning on proposing this, but this would be the only one we will do in the spring. I'm not gonna propose another one after this.
All right,
Yeah,
just clarification.
yep. Well, actually, overall, we'll be down a bus
Right.
when we're all said and done. And then I think on myself, I think everybody got my self-evaluation and goals. I'm sorry, I apologize for all the information. Sometimes people like to look at the previous year's information. I don't know if anybody did that, but in my past experience, that was always something that board members like to look at. And I think I was informed that you guys were gonna work on this, not tonight so much as maybe January. So, and we had so much going on tonight. Appreciate the work of the people that helped with the spring semester reopening and the gating. A lot of work went into it, from not just building administration, but I was really pleased that we had 3 board members highly participate. I omitted a very important, Tanya's name on it. Tanya, I don't know what the heck I was thinking. But yeah, Tanya was very instrumental in helping put all this together. But we had a lot of good input, and a lot of good discussion through this. I think a lot of good reflection by the entire team. Also, next month, Lori and I will be working on our mid-year, year-end budget projection, so we should have a report for that in January. And then the other thing I just want to start talking about a little bit, and we're already starting this internally, that we do want to look a little bit at the district communications position. I think that would be something the board has high interest in. We're also very interested in our college and career readiness position. We think that's very important. We have a half-time position this year. We would like to consider maybe looking at it as a full-time position, but that also means reevaluating THS staff, what that might look like. Maybe from some retirements, a lot of reshuffling, reconfiguration. And at the TES, there's also some retirements that might, we'll take a hard look at that. Do want to congratulate Gail out here. She's, how many years? 31 years. And congratulations to Gail for her announcing her retirement at the end of this working year. So those are things that we're all working on.
Hey, Lauren, on the budget projections, could you be sure and highlight any COVID impacts either way, as well as remote impacts either way? I think there'll be some positives and negatives there.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Just high level kind of.
The biggest, last year when we were shut down, they were apparent. I mean, transportation, food service, but.
I think just any points worth highlighting. I don't think it needs to be a ton of effort.
No,
just,
no.
Points either way.
Good point. Thank you, guys.
Lauren, how are the activities doing as far as people being healthy? We talked about having a little committee, haven't heard back, don't know.
Well, we haven't had to call one.
No?
No, we haven't had, the numbers have been very low.
Okay.
And we'll continue to monitor that, and actually, we're meeting, the administration is gonna meet again this week, and they're telling me numbers every day. So like tomorrow, I'm gonna update all our cases. That'll go on our website. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's on our website. So we'll look at how many positive cases, how many students and staff that we have in quarantine. And so if we have an issue where we have to look at, the activities, then we'll have to call a committee.
Okay.
But I don't anticipate us this week calling one.
All right.
Okay.
Assume, Tanya, you already gave your report on.
I think you've heard enough from me tonight.
All right. Hanging in there, good. Get through the action items then. Item 5.1 was put on there. Obviously, kind of feeds into the DLR discussion in terms of master planning, kind of knowing what our trends are enrollment-wise and what the future looks like. you know, I don't know if we reach, and obviously service agreements, we don't have to bid out. I don't know if we
No, I
reached
would-
out to many other, or if there's even many options locally. But
These are easily the most used demographic people. I mean, anywhere in the area, not even close. They're highly respected.
Well, the amount is within, under the,
9,000.
under the 20, that's your
Yeah.
number, right?
I would highly
I
recommend.
think my only concern would be, I would love to get both Dustin and Amber's view of what are the draw data elements they need to be able to do what they would do, and just make sure that all those foot out. And if we've, I mean, I think if we're getting the right data set from them, I don't know why we wouldn't move forward with that.
I think all three will work together.
Well, that would be
They're,
great.
yeah, they're
Well,
highly. yeah,
I mean, I
they're-
think what he's saying is just confirm with
Oh,
Yeah.
Eric, or confirm with DLR that
There's a-
that they're
there's a-
getting what they need.
Yeah, cause there's a specific scope that we're getting
Yes,
for
I got you.
$9,000.
And
And if there's something outside of that scope that Amber or Dustin would need, then that's a problem. So I think as long as we check that box, that'd be my only concern.
I mean, it seems to me like Dustin, if he may not be familiar with them or seen their data, if there's anything that could help him out, that maybe would be an extra item or something that we could add in.
To anyone's knowledge, have we ever done an enrollment forecast like this?
that I'm aware of.
Not since
I mean,
I've been here.
No one's.
Yeah, I like because so much of our decisions is based on that anyway. Even if you weren't doing a master plan, I think that would be something that would be valuable.
I think we discussed it before we did the bond, but I think we took enough of the time, and
Right.
the buildings were already at capacity, or that we didn't do it, but anyway. Any other discussion on action item 5.1?
They mentioned out to 10 years at 95%, which is still really impressive. I would just say it's like whatever our time frame, even if it gets to be like it's, you know, the projections get less accurate as they go out, it would be helpful to have their projections at least go out that far, maybe with a high-low or something like that, or range or something like that, so that the data, the inputs match what DLR and others are doing.
We'll have that conversation.
I kind of go back to what Justin said earlier. I think you do this, but in 5 years, you gotta be doing it again, or sooner you gotta be doing
Right, I
it
would
again.
imagine updates are out every 5 years. I agree, yes.
But anyway. With that, I'd entertain a motion on action item 5.1.
I would move that we approve the enrollment study from RSP pending Lauren's confirmation that the data elements that we need are there.
Is there a second?
I second.
Justin moved, Kai seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. Move on to 5.2, Beatty lights. I mean, I knew, we've been talking about this for a while, so we made sure to add it as an action item. I know we all got information kind of late today. I don't know do they supply us with a question for me, I guess, on this item? Do we know what the other bids even were?
I don't have, what happens is, all these companies, they bid into Keystone. The package, you know, what we were asking for is put there.
Yeah, we had that packet information.
Right, and then, so, I don't even know how many different companies actually bid on it. But they all bid through Keystone, that's what I was told.
So the numbers on this page is the top one, the one using
Using the criteria that we gave them.
and the,
Using
existing polls, and the other one is, with new polls.
Right, they were the best bids, and that is consistent with what I found through.
So if you look at that over the period of, like, you were asking about like numbers, and I was kinda looking, if the period of lifetime, so $178,000 over a 10-year period is what, $17,800 a year. And if you look at the 25-year, you're talking about 11,000 something. It seems more cost effective potentially to go with the new polls Because he even said, even with the existing ones, you tend to have issues where they have to come back and then we're gonna be paying for, you're not gonna have the same lifespan, and you're gonna end up paying probably more in the long run, potentially for using those older poles. I don't know.
Yeah, it's $6,000 a year. I don't know what we've been spending on maintenance.
We quit spending because we just felt like it was a
And
black
will-
hole.
Will the energy savings also equal potentially that 6,000 a year? Not only the cost
It'll
of
make a
repairing
difference,
it.
but it's not gonna.
Well, the cost of repairing it and the energy
Yeah.
savings combined, that's what I was kind of thinking. Would that make up for that difference between the two as well?
But I'm confident that the LEDs is the better option, and I like the new poles because of the 25-year no touch, they take care of it, right? But I would like to just have a due diligence so that we can say, hey, we looked at it, here's what the base was, and yeah, because we've made decisions before where we spent a little extra money and got what we thought was a lot more value out of it. But I'd just like to know what that is, just so for transparency because it is a sizable chunk of money. That's my only.
I agree with Drew, and add to that the fact that we only have visibility into one number. I would love it if through Keystone or some way, you know, could Keystone tell us, look, there were 6 bids and, you know, the high was $500,000 and the low was $278 and we gave you the low, or it just, I struggle a little bit only having eyes on one number.
Is there a time-wise?
I don't know. I mean, they would, if we were to approve it tonight, they would probably start on it ASAP, but I don't know what that timeline is. We were trying to get them done before soccer season because we'll need them. And that's late March.
6 to 8 week delivery time.
And I guess
They wouldn't get started right away because it's gonna take 6
Right,
weeks to
and-
get it.
so, if you push it back a month, then you're just reducing it.
I know we were we're looking at paying this out of capital outlay, and we've
Right.
kind of been ballparking 200,000 roughly, haven't we?
Right.
Another, first I didn't think the poles were that much valuable, but that warranty difference that seems pretty valuable. But
I'd just be more comfortable if we had at least 1 or 2 or 3 more bids to know, you know.
well, is there, I think I'm hearing a general, we all recognize we've got an issue, we'd just like a little more information, so I don't know if we can table
So-
this and
So
get
what
some-
were the other bids, and then, do you want me to do what would it cost?
Well, see, here's the thing, I think Brad could pull something together in 30 minutes.
For
and say,
halogen lights?
Right, what, halogen lights,
He
and
could.
based upon halogens, here's the foot candles you have, just so you can say, hey,
I don't know.
you know, if LED's a little bit more, and then what, assuming 2,000 to 3,000 hours a year of operation based upon 10 cent an hour, it's this amount of savings. I don't think it's that much time to pull together what the delta is, so that then we can say, oh yeah, here's what we looked at, and here was the value. Because I still think, when you look at it, given that the entire market's moving to LED,
It just feels like
I'm 95% sure it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But just so that when I get approached by the people I'm accountable to, which is the voters, I'll ask, well, why did you do this? I want to have that information.
I think the one other thing to consider, as much as I love the 25-year warranty, I'd love to know what we're paying for that, because, you know, if you get an extended warranty on your vehicle, you know, going from 30,000 to 60,000 isn't that expensive, but going from 60 to 100 is very expensive. And it'd be nice to know what we're paying for that. And I love the idea. It just, I suspect it's a big number.
Well, yeah. Is there, I'd entertain a motion in terms of board action on this item.
I would make the motion for item 5.2 to table the approval of Beatty Field Lights bid until we get updated information.
Second.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we table action item 5.2 with Chris and Justin. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried. 5.3, again, I know we started kind of the process internally, trying to figure out master planning, and then we kind of gone down the road and talking to DLR. And as she noted, she mentioned it too. She met with Lauren and I and Chris, and that's just kind of an update to the whole board. And I think they provide a lot of value given what we've got out of this so far from with the bond and everything. I think tonight we should consider like the hourly not to exceed amount. And I mean, I had a conversation with Mr. Sturgeon. He's familiar with these contracts, and he might be willing to help sit in and help, you know, work that details out, because we don't have an actual contract here tonight. But I don't know what other comments there are from the board or interest or thoughts.
So could the action be to approve further discussion with DLR to reach a contract and then come back before the board?
Sure. Yeah, I think we'd have to finalize that.
Yeah, 'cause we don't have a proposed team, we don't have really a defined scope, it's really qualifications concept level at this point. And a lot of details with different parties, because I think you could be talking about, somebody Dustin could be doing some of it, but he may not have the expertise to do some real like in-depth budget forecasting and stuff like that, because he, is more on the bond side. So you could be talking about several different people to make sure that things are aligned.
I guess that kind of depends on what I guess I'm trying to see what the facilities are and what they tell us our costs are. I mean, it would seem like
because
somebody
also
else is gonna have to help you with the finance piece of that.
Yeah, but of our entire budget, how much is facilities and maintenance as a percentage, right? It's not.
Well, capital outlay is like, $2 million or $1.5 to $2 million or something like that.
Right.
I think the only thing that we could approve tonight would be to continue the conversation with Amber to come up with a more defined scope and a price.
And then I'll outline the maintenance of how they're gonna do this.
Was that Kaya?
Sorry, because I said, and then the district could also at the same time outline like the maintenance of that plan. Like Justin had mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. Is that something that we could put into a policy, like, hey, every 5 years we do that? I mean, adopt as a strategy? I mean, I guess
I think by 5 years it's so stale that you're starting over. I think you have to do it every year.
Probably needs to be added to a job description of a staff member, right? So that's part of your job description is you oversee that plan, right? No?
No, I agree. I guess, Jim, I'll make a motion. I would move that we continue discussion with DLR Group to get to the point that we have a scope and a price and bring it back to the board.
I'll second it.
Justin moved, Kyle seconded that we move this, keep moving forward with discussion. I guess the only question I might ask on that is, do you want a committee to help you, or just?
I wouldn't mind we'll invite Amber to come over, and if Justin wants to meet with me and
I guess if the board had any thoughts on feedback in terms of the scope of the project and forward it on to you to help fine tune that.
We'll line up a meeting.
All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All in favor, motion approved, sorry, it's getting long and late here. Item 5.4, the approved spring reopening plan and updated gating criteria. I don't know, we seem to beat that to death. I don't know if there's any more discussion on that. Comments, feedback? If not, I'd entertain them. You got something to say?
No.
Stop.
We ready?
Yes, I do. I make
I'll
a
make a
motion to approve, action item 5.4.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm gonna give it to Chris, sorry. Can't hear out of here. Anyway, this motion, the motion in front of us to approve action item 5.4. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. All right, discussion of executive session. I don't believe there's anything for that. Move on to general board discussion. I mean, I think as Lauren mentioned, we will, he submitted his information. Please submit any comments to me for his eval, and I'll work on that. I'm also going to point out to the board that we are required at our January meeting by law to discuss officer elections. It can be put off till July of every year, but I will let you know right now that come January, I will not accept the role of president. So when that meeting comes around, you guys can all discuss amongst yourselves how you feel or who wants to volunteer to have that role. So
How many does it take to override that?
you'll just have to figure that out.